Hey everyone, and welcome back to our channel. Today, we're diving deep into the life of one of history's most legendary figures, a man who forged an empire from the ashes of Rome and earned the title Father of Europe. We're talking about Charles the Great, or as you probably know him, Charlemagne. So, who was this guy? Picture this. It's the 8th century. The Western Roman Empire is long gone, and Europe is a chaotic patchwork of warring tribes and petty kingdoms. Into this chaos steps Charles, son of Pepin the Short, king of the Franks. He wasn't born into a peaceful, stable world. He inherited a kingdom, sure, but it was a kingdom that needed a strong hand to hold it together and expand its influence. From the very beginning, Charlemagne was a man of action. He was tall, physically imposing, and incredibly energetic. Chroniclers tell us he loved hunting, swimming, and, most of all, warfare. And boy, did he see a lot of it. For over 3 decades, he was almost constantly on campaign, leading his armies across Europe. He wasn't a king who sat on a throne and sent others to do the fighting. He was right there in the thick of it. His military campaigns were relentless. He fought the Lombards in Italy, incorporating their kingdom into his own. He pushed into Spain, battling the Moors in a long, grueling conflict that would later be immortalized in the epic poem, The Song of Roland. But his most brutal and protracted war was against the Saxons in the north. This wasn't just a war of conquest, it was a war of culture and religion. For 30 years, Charlemagne fought to subdue the pagan Saxons and convert them to Christianity, often through very harsh means. This part of his legacy is complex and controversial, showing the side of a ruler who believed his mission was divinely inspired and would stop at nothing to achieve it. Through these constant wars, Charlemagne did something remarkable. He doubled the size of the Frankish kingdom. His domain stretched from the Atlantic coast of France all the way to modern-day Hungary and from northern Germany down to central Italy. He had pieced together the largest unified territory in Western Europe since the Romans. But conquering land is one thing. Governing it is another challenge entirely. And this is where Charlemagne's genius as a ruler really shines. He wasn't just a warrior. He was a brilliant administrator. How do you control such a vast, diverse empire in an age without modern communication? Charlemagne's solution was to divide his territory into counties, each managed by a loyal count. To keep these counts in check, he created a system of royal inspectors called the Missi Dominici, or envoys of the Lord. These pairs of officials, usually one clergyman and one nobleman, traveled the empire, ensuring the king's laws were being followed. Justice was being served, and corruption was rooted out. It was a clever system of checks and balances that helped unify his realm under a single authority. He also standardized weights, measures, and, crucially, the currency. He introduced a new silver coin, the denier, which became the standard for centuries. This economic reform made trade easier and helped knit the disparate parts of his empire together into a more cohesive whole. Think about it. For the first time in generations, people from different regions were using the same money and following the same laws, all under one ruler. This created a sense of shared identity, a Proto-European identity that hadn't existed before. But perhaps Charlemagne's most lasting legacy wasn't on the battlefield or in the economy, but in the realm of culture and learning. This might surprise you, given his reputation as a fierce warrior, but Charlemagne was a passionate advocate for education. He himself was largely illiterate for most of his life. He tried to learn to write late in life, but struggled with it. However, he deeply respected knowledge and saw it as essential for a stable and prosperous Christian empire. He lamented the poor quality of Latin and the low educational standards among the clergy, who were the main administrators and record-keepers of the time. So, what did he do? He gathered the brightest minds from all over Europe to his court at Aachen. Scholars like Queen of York from England became his personal tutors and advisors. This sparked a period of intense intellectual and cultural revival that historians now call the Carolingian Renaissance. A massive effort was undertaken to copy and preserve ancient texts, the works of Roman poets, philosophers, and historians. Without this project, many of the classical works we have today would have been lost forever. They also developed a new, clearer style of handwriting known as Carolingian minuscule. This script, with its clear separation of letters and use of lowercase, is the direct ancestor of the fonts we use today. So, every time you type an email or read a book, you're benefiting from a reform that happened over 1,200 years ago at Charlemagne's court. Now let's get to the moment that cemented his legendary status. It's Christmas Day in the year 800. Charlemagne is in Rome, attending Mass at St. Peter's Basilica. As he kneels in prayer, Pope Leo III suddenly places a crown on his head and declares him Emperor of the Romans. The accounts say Charlemagne was surprised, but historians debate how much of a surprise it really was. Regardless, this event was monumental. It was the symbolic rebirth of the Western Roman Empire, with a Germanic, Frankish king at its head, sanctioned by the head of the Christian Church. This new entity would evolve into what we now call the Holy Roman Empire, a major political force in Europe that would last for 1,000 years. The coronation fused Germanic power, Roman tradition, and Christian authority, creating a new political and cultural ideal for Western civilization. Charlemagne was no longer just a king of the Franks. He was the divinely appointed protector of Christendom. He was a devout Christian, yet he had multiple wives and concubines, and fathered at least 18 children. He was deeply devoted to his family, so much so that he refused to let his daughters marry while he was alive, keeping them close to him at court. He was known for his simple dress, preferring the traditional Frankish attire over extravagant robes. But his court at Aachen became a dazzling center of power and culture. When Charlemagne died in 800, he left behind an empire that was more stable, more literate, and more unified than Europe had been in centuries. Of course, his empire didn't last forever. Within a generation, it was divided among his grandsons, a split that laid the foundation for the modern nations of France and Germany. But his impact was indelible. He had created the very concept of a unified Europe, or Christendom, as a political and cultural entity. He revived learning, reformed the church, and established a model of kingship that would influence rulers for centuries to come. He was a warrior, a statesman, a reformer, and a patron of the arts. It's no wonder he became a figure of legend, a hero of epic poems, and a saint in parts of the church. So, when we call him the father of Europe, it's not an exaggeration. Charlemagne laid the groundwork, politically, culturally, and intellectually, for the development of Western civilization as we know it. His reign was a brief, bright light in the so-called Dark Ages. A moment when one man's vision and unstoppable will reshaped a continent. What do you think is Charlemagne's most important legacy? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey back in time, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest figures. See you in the next one.